have a dream that my 4 little children
Martin Luther King was not a Christian.
will one day live in a nation
MLK
where
was
they
actually
will not
a
be judged by the
horrifically
color
bad
of their
person.
skin, but by the
MLK,
content of their character. I have a dream today.
Rotten, and the tree that it came from had to be rotten.
Hey, there's been a lot of discourse about MLK lately. Let's break these claims down.
Martin Luther King was not a Christian. He did not believe in the ethereal intent of the Word of God.
So in MLK's early theological writings, he did question the traditional Orthodox beliefs, including ideas like the virgin birth and Jesus' bodily resurrection. He basically claimed that these were empirically unprovable. So I definitely understand why people would question the validity of his Christianity, but I don't think that takes him out of the scope of what Christianity is. People interpret Christianity different. That's why there's so many different branches of it. MLK's framework of thought just happens to be underneath the liberal Protestant. I think that it's very human to question your religion that you are a part of. You're not a horrible person for not believing to a T what others in your denomination believe in.
Birth. He had orgies with male prostitutes. He cheated on his wife and he beat them. He didn't
Fact check. The FBI did conduct extensive illegal surveillance on Dr. King, where they allegedly found substantial evidence that he did step outside of his marriage with Black and white women. But there's no strong evidence to suggest that he was engaging in homosexual behavior. What a lot of people are pointing to are these vague references in the files to unnatural acts or abnormal behavior, which are terms that are not synonymous with homosexuality. There's a lot of abnormal or unconventional intimate acts that have nothing to do with being gay. Not that I would know. Now, if we're talking about voyeurism or mixed group activities, now there is a stronger case for that, but we do have to remember that the FBI was going through a smear campaign against MLK, and there's not strong corroboration outside of them to suggest that this is like factually correct. But there's no evidence that he beat anyone. No verified recordings, photographs, court records, police reports, credible eyewitnesses.
The evidence you're looking for cannot be found.
Sorry. And King often opened up about his flaws. He described himself as a sinner. He never portrayed himself as the perfect or particularly good person. He often shared in these reflections. A really good quote is, "There is some good in the worst of us and evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies."
He didn't organize his own protests. He plagiarized his doctorate. He didn't write his own speeches. In fact, his I Had a Dream speech was written by a Jewish communist, which only speaks to his communist ties, and that was actually the reason he was assassinated.
So there is evidence of significant plagiarism in King's doctoral dissertation. There's actually large sections that are almost verbatim with no proper attribution, no footnotes, no quotation marks. On the speechwriting front, I would say that all political figureheads have their professional speakers and advisors that are attached to them. That's not an abnormal thing. Our presidents have advisors, have speechwriters. Constant communist accusations back then were over the top and often exhausting, is what I would have said if I didn't watch this video.
It said that in 1956, the communists in Russia said that they wanted their people in the civil rights movement to turn the Black community into a direct replica of the Soviet bloc. They've achieved it. We are a Marxist communist enclave.
I know a lot of people view socialism as a stepping stone for communism, but it seems like it's more like when people call Trump a fascist. It's a slippery slope comparison. I do think that ideologies can overlap with one another, and King did firmly reject communism, but he did have a lot of advisors that had communist ties or alleged communist ties. So the associations were real. And it definitely didn't help that the Soviet Union was implementing itself in America's racial struggles to basically embarrass the U.S. abroad. International pressure definitely added a layer of urgency. Presidents from Truman to Johnson saw Jim Crow as a national security liability. This definitely played a part in building momentum behind the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
But because he had communist ties and the CIA assassinated him the morning after he was sleeping with prostitutes, what did you think he was doing in that hotel?
There's no recorded evidence to suggest that he was with a prostitute the night prior to his assassination. There's a woman of the name by Georgia Davis Powers who does claim that she had a personal, intimate relationship with MLK and that she was actually with him the night before his assassination, and she put this into her memoir. Historians do know that there's actually no credible historical records to verify this claim. Either way, she's not a prostitute. She was an elected official and an activist.
MLK did not help black people, and the Civil Rights Act did way more harm to black communities than good. This is because forced integration destroyed black institutions. During segregation, black people were forced to build parallel and equal institutions as white communities.
So I agree to a degree. One, it is disingenuous to say that Jim Crow segregation was separate but equal. Segregation acted as a catalyst to enforce this second-class citizenship onto Black Americans. Black schools were underfunded, Black facilities were inferior to their white counterparts, voting was suppressed through poll taxes, and economic opportunities were significantly restricted. These injustices fueled not only MLK, but the broad collective of Black Americans who pushed for the Civil Rights Movement. Marxist ideas were not specifically being pushed by MLK. We know that he did grow sympathetic towards the social economic views, but there were other radical-winged Black liberationists who drew from the Marxist class analysis and later were influenced by the Communist Party. They were the ones that implemented this into their framework and pushed for collective action against structural barriers. I do acknowledge the economic trade-off that came with segregation. Integration did harm traditional Black-owned businesses. Black consumers had limited choice, and after 1964, that limited choice expanded, and they chose to go to white-owned businesses that had better selection, lower pricing, credit access, and this perceived quality. We just shouldn't oversimplify the Civil Rights Movement as being the sole culprit to the destruction of Black businesses. We understand that there was multiple factors going on. There was the white flight and urban riots. There was the deindustrialization and economic shifts. There was the culture and family changes. So yes, it did help dismantle the Black dollar, but when looking at all of the information, you would see that as more of a net positive, a net gain, more so than a net negative. Black poverty fell, high school completion rates rose, and this Black middle class expanded.
We all learned the I Have a Dream speech. You know the one. Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles will hold hands together and sing Kumbaya or something like that. But baby, what they didn't tell you was that MLK evolved. And y'all know my grandma would say, it ain't how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, during his final years, he did become a little more radical. He moved past fighting for legal segregation and confronted deeper systemic issues. He launched a Poor People's Campaign, and he demanded economic justice, guaranteed jobs, and redistribution of wealth, which we know rich people don't like. During 1967, he did a Beyond Vietnam speech where he pissed a lot of his allies off, and this is where he really started to become alienated.
The Jewish connection to the Civil Rights Movement is deep and real. Jews marched alongside Black leaders in the South. Rabbis were among the freedom riders.
So there was a rather noticeable overrepresentation of Jewish people in the Civil Rights Movement. They made up around 3% of America, but accounted for a huge chunk of activists, lawyers, organizers. This was a similar pattern to the LGBT movement as well. A lot of people saw this as a beautiful display of shared struggles, tikkun olam, while others looked at it as a co-opting of movements through advisory roles, heavy funding, and behind-the-scene influence. And they saw the accusations of anti-Semitism as a tool to try to silence them. I'll leave that one under interpretation for you guys. Consensus is that Martin Luther King overall was thriving to be a good person, but I am Black and I might be biased. I'm sitting here in my chair in my apartment because of the doors that MLK and the Civil Rights Movement opened for me. So that's it for now. Let me know if there's any misinformation. We know there's a major release of information in 2027 on the Martin Luther King files. So if this video does good, we could definitely break that down as well. That'd be so fun. But yeah, till next time.